How we doing? How we doing? This is Destination Denver, Colorado, and today we're here to talk about 5 things that I have come to hate about Denver, Colorado, and a couple that I believe you'll hate as well, and we're starting right now. All right, this is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Evertsels, and there's 2 things we do here. 1, we talk all things eating, breathing, living, experiencing Denver, Colorado, and the Colorado Front Range. And as a licensed mortgage broker covering the entire state of Colorado and team with some of the state's most talented realtors, we're helping people like yourself move here each and every day. So the number and email you see on your screen, just know that I am always the person answering your phone calls, answering your texts, and answering your emails. Now that we have that fun-filled stuff out of the way, let's get to what we're here for, and that is, as much as I love Denver, Colorado, as much as I have lived the majority of my life here, grew up here, I'm raising a family here, there are things about this city that have become beyond frustrating. They are things that I would use the term I hate, whether I would like to see them change, whether they are irreversible, and that's what we're gonna get into today with as much reality as I can bring. So when I think about what I despise, what I hate about living in Denver, Colorado, currently, the first thing that comes to mind is what I see every single day, and that is the fact that our air quality and our view of these beautiful Rocky Mountains is a joke. Now, the haze of downtown has always kind of been there. I remember growing up as a kid in the 80s and seeing just kind of that smog. You would always hear it in like cities like a Los Angeles, but we saw it here as well. What has become more frustrating is that you have the Rocky Mountains, this beautiful vision that is supposed to be one of the most, dramatic aspects of living in Colorado and living in Denver, and yet every single day when you look at it, you have that haze. It's so bad that when the haze is light, you actually think it's a clear day until you actually think about it and realize, oh no, there's still a lot of smog. I can't see, even though I am less than 10 or 15 miles from these mountains, there is still a haze of pollution between me and those mountains. And it's frustrating because we always talk about, oh, come up to Colorado, come up to the fresh Rocky Mountain air, and we don't have that in the Denver metro. We don't have that in a lot of areas of Colorado. And listen, we can blame it on wildfires at times in certain areas of the country, but at the end of the day, Colorado's air quality index often rivals Los Angeles during the summertime. Around July, you'll see LA and Denver like neck and neck. And I find it humorous that these are 2 states that, pride themselves, that talk so much about, being green and being healthy. And yet, you look outside. From my house, I have a decent view of downtown and I have a decent view of the mountains. And both of them are going to have this brown fog covering the view I have of them. The second thing I've grown to hate, and this has been kind of a slow process because it took me a while, especially, again, growing up here, I left for about 12 years, 13 years between military and different things, came back, but to realize that Denver has really lost its identity. Denver is a city without an identity. Growing up, it was a mountain town. I always joked that it was a cow town. There were ranches, there were horses, you kind of had that Old West feel. Downtown Denver didn't have a whole lot to it. I wouldn't brag on what downtown Denver had in the 80s, but the city itself, the town itself, had a culture. And again, it wasn't, St. Louis is the gateway of the West, I don't want to say that, but it was just kind of this town that, you felt the old gold rush and silver rush. Well, that feeling now, for a large part, is gone. Are we a mountain town? Are we a tech town? Are we an economic boom? Are we a startup hub? Are we trying to be Seattle or Austin or Nashville? And, when I talk to a lot of people who have moved here recently from other cities, that's kind of one of the things that they mention. So not only, locals, as I talk to them, they've said, hey, we don't like some of these changes that have occurred to Denver. Well, you're also seeing it with people who move here and they're like, we like Colorado and we like the areas around the metro, but Denver itself, it's just a city. And, I think that's the key thing. That, when you go into Denver, it doesn't really have a character. We're gonna get into that as well. But again, it's just a city. It doesn't have anything specific that pulls you in. And what doesn't help this, and listen, I'm not a, Colorado natives rule type of guy, But I do think there's something to be said for the number of transplants we've had coming to Colorado and coming to Denver, who rather than, I don't know, assimilating into the culture of the city, have brought a lot of what they wanted to leave behind here. And Denver, listen, for decades, Denver has loved to blame California for all its struggles. People from California came to Denver, they changed it. I do think there is something to be said for, the melting pot of Denver has improved the city in a lot of ways. But because of that lack of assimilation to kind of that Denver history and energy, that's part of the reason I think we've lost that identity. It's like you wanted to come to a new place, but rather than making it a new place, you did everything you could to make it like the place you left. I don't know if that makes sense to people, but it's just something I feel, and it's something that other people I've talked to have shared. Playing off of that, the third thing that I've really come to despise is again, there's some great areas of downtown Denver. There's some great areas to go explore. But downtown Denver has kind of a split personality thing going on, where you go to certain areas and it's walkable and there are people doing things and it's clean and it's policed. I'm gonna say it, it's policed. You don't have, again, I don't want to sound heartless when I say this, but you don't have homeless people just kind of strewn out, wherever they want to be. Which was a significant problem and still is in certain areas of Denver. But there was a period of time where you'd go to certain areas of Denver and you just had people like laying on the sidewalk. Again, I'm not a heartless human being. I want to try to help these people, but at the same time, I don't believe they should be allowed to just kind of lay out in the middle of a sidewalk where, people are moving around, where you have businesses and apartments. Having said that, so you go to these areas of Denver where it's nice and there's a lot of things going on, and then you go a few blocks over and it's empty storefronts and it's dirty and there's not a whole lot going on, and it's almost as though you're in a different city. Now, I've lived in New York, I've lived in Cleveland, I've lived in Honolulu, I've lived in some bigger cities, and I know that's, again, not uncommon. It's not as though any city is just completely full and beautiful and walkable and all of those things. But where it occurs in Denver is very abrupt. And so it feels like the city has a hangover. Like, we're not quite sure, like, are we reborn? Or are we reignited? Or are we still kind of like hungover, ghost town, not really sure. Again, I think these two things play off of each other. Denver's not really sure about the identity it's trying to grow. It doesn't want to be too old-fashioned and too old west, too, I don't know, gold rushy. But at the same time, it's not trying, I hope it's not trying to be, to LA, to San Francisco, to New York, to Miami, which obviously we are not. Again, kind of playing into this, and this is both one of my favorite things about Denver and how it has evolved, and yet it has become one of the things that I despise about the city, is the overdevelopment of character neighborhoods. So, for instance, growing up in Denver, there's 5 Points, which still exists, 5 Points, and North Denver. So 5 Points, North Denver. And these areas were then changed, that the name has been shifted, where a lot of people refer to 5 Points as Rhino, which is River North. And Rhino always existed. There was an arts district there, but that's kind of how people refer to 5 Points now. And instead of saying North Denver, people will call it the Highlands. And listen, I'm guilty of that. I will commonly say the Highlands to describe North Denver. But it's not just the Highlands now. Now it is the Highlands and West Highlands and Lower Highlands. It's like, every section has to have its own name. And there's also kind of this again, overdevelopment, where you're knocking down a lot of history and people are building, and I'm a fan of modern houses. I do like the aesthetics of them. But sometimes you have these neighborhoods where like you have this great history and then it's being ripped down, and you have these Minecraft-like homes being built over them, and some of these old commercial buildings being ripped down. And again, it's a balance of progress and all of these things. I get it, but I just feel like it's being overdone. And one of the things I find comical 5 Points. There's a lot of art districts over there. Rhino is big for that. I'm going to go back and forth saying 5 Points and Rhino, because at the end of the day, if you are doing research on Denver, Rhino is going to pop up more often for you. Highlands is going to pop up more often for you than looking up North Denver. So when we talk about a lot of these art districts, I'm a fan of it. I like the culture. I like that there's more to do. I like that there's people getting out and about. But it's like all of these areas now are trying to build off of that. I mean, an art district is built or recreated or updated so often that you have basically a mural being, painted over before people even got a chance to see it. Like, you painted a mural, and before people even got a chance to visit, someone's coming in and painting over it with a new mural. It's like, slow down a little bit maybe, or try to be a little unique. And also, I mean, my biggest thing, Denver, like, we're a cool city, we're a hip city, we have a lot of things going on, but you do not need to name every block. We can call it the Highlands. Like, you can have, it's a decent section of town, you can just say the Highlands. You could even say Highlands and West Highlands, cool with it. Then we get low high, pretty soon you're gonna have like lower low high and western West Highlands, and you're gonna have, I don't know, I live in Sloan's Lake for a long time, you're gonna have East Sloan's Lake and West Sloan's Lake. Like, just slow it down, okay? We're not Brooklyn. And playing into that, I think the last thing I say I hate, but the last thing that is how bougie Denver just seems to think it is. So you could go to an average, a mid-level, you could go to a mid-level restaurant and you're gonna pay $55 for a steak. You're gonna go to damn near a college bar and you're gonna pay $15, $16 or more for a cocktail. You're gonna pay $12 for a beer. And listen, I know that Denver is one of the most expensive towns in the United States to operate a restaurant. In fact, I saw one study or one report that we were the most expensive, that we were more expensive to operate a restaurant than New York. And so I can understand, having worked in that industry, I can understand that your price point have to be to a point where you can afford to operate. Maybe Denver doesn't need as many restaurants as it needs, or maybe we need some type of come to Jesus with some of these commercial properties. But at the end of the day, Denver likes to pretend, I mentioned, New York and LA and Miami. And when it comes to these restaurants, we are not New York. We are not LA. We are not Las Vegas. We are a place where, sure, we get a lot of tourists, a lot of people visiting, but the vast majority of people who are going to these restaurants and going out to these activities, they're people who just live here in Denver. They're just trying to go out for a meal. And if even the most average restaurants are far more expensive than reasonably they should be, that is a problem, and it's a frustration. I also think that there's a certain equilibrium where restaurants are competitive and they're doing more and they're being impressive because of that competition. And then there's restaurants you walk into that flat out have no business charging the prices they do. And listen, businesses, capitalism works out, and at certain points these restaurants are either gonna learn or adjust or what have you. But I would just say to the folks of Denver, I love you. We are not New York. Ease it down. Now, I told you that there are a couple things that I hate that you are going to as well, and I say that with a lot of confidence. So, I mentioned Denver feeling it's bougie. Well, affordability is a joke for a lot of people here in Denver. You could call it the 300 days of sunshine tax, if you will. And this certainly started in the 2010s as more people moved here. And I'm a fan of growth. I'm a fan of progress. There's a certain point again where Denver has jumped the shark in that regard and things have to be adjusted. We are far more expensive than realistically we should be. And that goes across the board. I mentioned restaurants. I mean, housing, events, activities, things you want to go do. Hell, parking near a restaurant. Denver, the Denver metro area, it will pick apart your checkbook constantly. And listen, I know concerts are expensive everywhere. I know sporting events are expensive everywhere, but it's just about everything you want to do in Denver that has gone up in price. And again, I'm a believer that if you get a high quality product, you're going to pay a lot for that. That is not always the case. You don't always get a high quality product with some of these things, but again, call it that sunshine tax. So many people wanting to move to Denver has pushed that price up. And that's why, when we talk about starter homes for a lot of people who are going to buy something, you're looking in the 600,000s for a lot of starter homes. If you're thinking about renting and you want a 2-bedroom in a decent, in a good quality area, you're probably going to pay $2,200 or well above that, especially well above that for some of these nicer areas. If you're thinking about renting a single family house, you're going to pay well into the 3,000s. You might as well buy at that point. So as far as the city just getting in over its skis, good reference to some of our outdoor activities, it's just a city where that affordability piece is in flux. Pandemic certainly didn't help. And this is common. Seattle saw it, Austin saw it, Nashville saw it. I talked to a lot of people on this channel about areas that have seen it. I believe Denver is going through that. And the last one, you've probably heard about all the traffic in Denver. This isn't a traffic conversation. This is about asshole drivers, and Denver is filled with them. And listen, I thought about this going in because I was talking to a bunch of people. We're having different conversations about things that annoyed us or we despised about Denver. And what kept coming up wasn't, the person who doesn't know how to merge or the person driving slow in the left lane or things that like the common annoyance. It was how horrific certain people drive, and specifically on I-25, our north-south highway, which gets pretty windy as you go through Denver. There's a lot of corners, there's a lot of oncoming ramps. I mean, it's right in the heart of the city, and how aggressive certain drivers are. Now listen, again, as I mentioned, I lived in New York for many years. I am not the slowest, driving Miss Daisy driver by any means. But it is flat out insane how some of these people operate their vehicles. There are certain areas, there's an area of I-25 as you're coming from the north and you're heading into the city where again, it starts to get really windy. And without question, I just know it's going to happen. There's going to be a couple cars that come weaving, especially as you get into the evening where you can't see as well. There's going to be cars weaving, cutting in. And you could say that occurs anywhere. You see those drivers exist in every city, in every place, in every country on the planet. But when I have multiple people, including a lot from this channel who have moved to Denver, who tell me, man, I've seen aggressive drivers, but the people in Denver are stupid, that's when I know we have a problem. Add on to that as I'm making this video towards the end of October, that we're getting ready to get into our snowy season, and we get to learn about, love you all, but all the transplants who have never seen snow before, as well as people who have lived in Colorado forever and somehow still do not know how to function in a vehicle in snow. Maybe it's because they still have rear wheel drive. That makes me want to shake a baby. I joke, shake it for a second, I kid. But it's one of those situations where, if you have not driven in the snow before, I'm going to encourage you at a minimum to have a front wheel drive car. Hopefully you have an all-wheel drive car, and I want you to take that car out to a parking lot once it snows, and I want you to drive around in it. I want you to get a feel for snow and for ice and for all of the things. And if you are, with love, one of those drivers who likes to weave and likes to be crazy, listen, maybe this is the old man in me talking because I was once an idiot kid who probably drove more reckless than I should. But as now a 47-year-old with a 2-year-old daughter in the back seat, chill out. Chill out. We're all going to get there in time. Listen, those are 7 things that I would say I hate, and a couple things that you'll probably hate about Denver as well. Do I still love this city? Absolutely. Do I still plan on raising my family and continuing to have my immediate family here in Denver? Absolutely. I still think, hands down, it is one of, if not the best cities in the entire United States. I think you can find things to despise about any city you live in. I just wanted to share some of mine today, and hopefully you found those helpful. I would love to hear your perspective. What are things you love about the city? What are things you hate about the city? What are things that you wish the city would improve on? I am all ears, comments, phone call, text. However I can be of assistance at any time, I'd love to hear from you. This is Destination Denver, Colorado. I'm your host, Jimmy Everts. That was 5 things I have come to hate about Denver, Colorado, and a couple that you'll hate as well. Till I see you next time. Peace.